So hey Alex, tell me your story. Who are you? Where were you born? What kind of family were you born in? How did you get where you are?
It's a big question.
Yeah, I know. A small version, please.
The small version, I was technically born in Washington, D.C. Um, and my father was in politics. He was an FCC commissioner and maritime administrator. Has very much made most of his career about serving the public interest. He was on the cover of Rolling Stone, of all things, back in 1971.
What?
Because he was one of the few FCC commissioners in the 20th century to speak out against media conglomeration and really saw at that time the airwaves as being something that was a public good that should be served in the public interest. And since then has befriended numerous public interest figures such as Ralph Nader and several others, and is always asking that question, what is the public interest and how can I help? On my mother's side of the family, whom I grew up with when I was a young child, they were always very much into entrepreneurship and marketing and advertising and a variety of other commercial pursuits. So a lot of my career has always been, and a lot of my life span has been about trying to find that balance between how can I blend my passion for entrepreneurship but also with doing social good at the same time. And so everything from, I launched my first classified newspaper when I was 16. I had actually left high school early, took the GED, and moved out to Oregon. And it was a little classified newspaper, and I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but I will anyway. The way I was able to get that off the ground was I had very little money. You're speaking about $100 to launch some of these companies. I believe that company I probably launched for about less than $500. But the premise was, go around to small businesses and have them place advertisements in this publication. Well, I actually ended up going up to other publications and taking their ads and putting them in this publication, and then would go around and knock on doors and say, hey, look at this amazing publication, you too can advertise in it, and ran that for a few months, and then over a year was able to sell it off to another communications company. Since then, I've always been passionate about entrepreneurship. Fast forward to when I was at the University of Iowa, I tried launching a platform where people could pay their rent online and improve their credit score at the same time. Also, another example of something that was near and true to my heart was that here in America we've got roughly 38 million Americans renting, which is roughly a $650 billion transfer from, in most cases, working class Americans to the landlord class or to these large property groups. That's not necessarily a bad thing, other than the fact that they're not building any equity. There's nothing to show for it at the end. It's just a flat-out expense. And so the platform was trying to address what are ways we can improve the credit score so that when they go and apply for a loan, either for a small business or for a home, they're not paying as much interest rates because they've played by the rules and they've improved their credit score at the same time. Fast forward to after that, spent some time out in the San Francisco Bay Area, really fell in love with tech entrepreneurship during that time. The last company I was with, I was VP of Business Development for Variable, which makes a handheld device called the Node. It's a sensor platform with interchangeable sensors that will connect with your smart device, which these days is primarily used in industry for both vibration analysis as well as for color referencing. And if you're interested in learning more about that company and its successes, you can visit Variable Inc., VARIABLEINC.com. And then, as we were joking about earlier, in a nutshell, most of my career has been about helping companies get from an idea or $0 in revenue up to their first million. And I often joke that once a company reaches its first $1 million, they start asking you to wear a suit. And as you can tell, that's not really my style. I enjoy being around entrepreneurs and helping everyone I come across identify a path forward where they're either going to win a little or they're going to win a lot. And to believe in them and to support them along the way. So I was very fortunate to come across the company lab here, where I've been an entrepreneur in residence and director of Gig Tank for the past year and 3 months. I've got about a month left, and after that I'm figuring out what's next, and who knows, maybe we'll find a company we can launch together or find another way that we can change the world. So if you're interested, feel free to tweet me anytime at alexlavidge.com or follow me on Facebook, and would look forward to getting a chance to know you a little bit better and seeing how we can help each other make the world a better place.
Brilliant. So you skipped your studies? You never studied like me?
I studied psychology and philosophy when I was at Oregon State. I studied entrepreneurship when I was at the University of Iowa. I'm a little bit of a unique situation. I'm technically one course and a test away from completing my college degree. It's been a blessing and a curse, I'll put it that way, but I believe I've got somewhere in the ballpark of 160 something credit hours, 120 are required to graduate. One of these days I'll get back to that, but in the meantime I've been having too much fun helping other entrepreneurs and startups succeed. I think we're living in an age today where there's nothing wrong with education. Education is very important, but one of the big global challenges we have right now is we've got to figure out a way people can educate themselves and get certified and accredited through that education without going into debt. Right now we've got roughly $1.3 trillion worth of student debt in this country, and there are still Americans that want to work, they want to learn, they want to keep doing good in the world, but they're having a hard time finding that balance in their lives that allows them to save money and move ahead. So if anything, I've kind of thought in my head, it hasn't just been lack of capacity to go back and finish, but also a part of my life has been trying to say, even though I'm technically that, one test and a course away from a college degree, can my life be an example among others that you don't have to let official accredited education get in the way of your success if you're willing to work hard and dream big and help others.
You mentioned Stanford at one point.
Yes.
Orchid and everyone. So you were studying there? Or?
I did. I took summer classes at Stanford. I also took summer classes at the London School of Economics. At Stanford, during that summer, I remember studying psychology of peak performance and social stratification, two very exciting topics. In London School of Economics, I studied market research. We were chatting earlier. When I was at Stanford, I became friends with a developer, programmer, Orkut, who is a Turkish entrepreneur. Launched Orkut.com when he was at Google. Prior to that, he launched a platform called Club Nexus. We're friends. I've been a fan of his. Hi, if you're watching this, Orkut. Hope you don't mind me giving you a shout out. I've always thought of that guy as really the grandfather of social networking. And have thought very highly of him over the years, and I'm really admiring now what he's doing with Hello.com, which is his new startup based out of the downtown area in San Francisco.
Brilliant. 3 books which you want people to read?
Fantastic. I would say one of my favorite books is, I am a huge fan of Peter Diamandis. He's a lot like yourself. I mean, he's very much a serial entrepreneur, a very big dreamer. He's written 2 books, one called Abundance, one called Bold. Both are must-reads in today's ever-changing global marketplace. It's fascinating, just in the United States alone, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies that existed in 1950, less than 12.2% of those exist today. It's no surprise then that over the next 10 years, it's anticipated 40% of the Fortune 500 companies will either be obsolete or gone because of the disruptive force of all these exponential technologies coming together. I belong to a group called Abundance 360. We meet in Beverly Hills each year, and it's a group of entrepreneurs and investors that want to come together to talk about what are exponential technologies that can grow. Ultimately, Peter has a saying, if you want to make $1 billion or $1 billion impact, solve a problem that affects over 1 billion people. So it's a great way of saying there are ways that through science and technology we can elevate humanity and improve the human condition, and also make that financially sustainable at the same time. Other books I would recommend, it's an oldie, but it's a classic. I love Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Andrew Carnegie commissioned Napoleon Hill himself to go around and study the characteristics and the personalities of some of these self-made wealthy individuals in America. And so many of those findings are so worth their weight in gold. I would say, last but not least, one of my new favorite books is called Disciplined Entrepreneurship. Disciplined Entrepreneurship, you can look into Google. There's also an online application, detoolbox.com, I think it is. And it's a checklist where it takes you through step by step to make sure that you're validating your business model before you launch. I think that's a very powerful way of thinking about entrepreneurship. Oftentimes with startups, we see people come together and it's very much ready, fire, aim, as I'd like to say. They're doing steps 4, 6, and 5 before 1, 2, and 3. So there are books like Steve Blank is a classic. He wrote a book called the Startup Owner's Manual. Has a lot of great checklists in that book. Also recommend Disciplined Entrepreneurship. Also, if you go to startupguide.com, that book will be coming out later this summer. Also some great checklists in there as well. So I would just say, in conclusion, really, in addition to those books, always, if you're able to get access to the web, at the library, through a friend, on your own computer, never stop learning. Keep reading every day as much as you can. You can see so much more success in your life if you can learn from the successes and failures from others through reading, rather than doing it on your own and figuring out the same lessons through a lot of trial and error.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.